Hello, everyone. Welcome to our first webinar, Harmonizing Investments, Exploring the Power of Music Royalties as an Asset Class. My name is Anna Rice. I'm a member of the operations team here at sliceNote. I'm delighted to be here and to introduce our esteemed speakers, including our CEO, Peter Sinclair, CTO, John Haller, and General Manager of sliceNote, Izaic Blazzard. Before we dive into our agenda today, I'd like to invite you all to participate in our first poll question. What is the objective behind your participation? This will help us tailor our future webinars to meet your needs better. So while you take a moment to answer this question, let me give you a quick overview of what we will cover today. Our discussion will include music as a stable asset class that is independent of the overall equities market, historical trends and future projections of music royalties as an investment, insights from institutional investors who have recognized the potential, our expertise and experience in royalty investment, an explanation of how sliceNote works, and then we will conclude with a live Q&A session. Throughout the webinar, I will be answering questions using the Q&A tool at the bottom of your screen. Feel free to submit your questions and I'll do my best to address all of them. If I can't answer your question during the presentation, don't worry, we'll be sure to address it during the live Q&A session. Without further delay, I'd like to invite Izaic to share the presentation while I introduce our very first speaker, Peter Sinclair. Peter is an entrepreneur focused on growth. He co-founded BeatBread, sliceNote's parent company, in 2020 with the goal of empowering artists to advance their careers while retaining control over their music and creative decisions. This vision led him to launch sliceNote, a platform where artists can secure funding from investors. Peter previously held leadership positions in e-commerce at Universal Music Group and various venture-backed entertainment, e-commerce, and financial services companies, including ScoreBig.com, Green Dot, and Provide Commerce. Thank you again for joining us. Over to you, Peter.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm really excited to talk a little bit about what sliceNote is and the theory of the case, and why it's possible now to invest in music royalties in a class of artists which had previously been inaccessible to investors. So I'm going to go a little bit over the music market in just a second, and then I'm going to hand it over to my esteemed co-founder, John Haller. So just quick overview of the music market. So music is a very stable asset class, contrary to what, if you don't think about it, you might think that, music is hard to predict and all these things. Music is very stable, and critically, from an investment perspective, it is uncorrelated with the broader economic cycles and stock market. So in years when the stock market is down, there are a lot of things that would tend to go along with it. Music historically has not been correlated with the stock market, so it's a great way to diversify your portfolio. Let's keep going. Music is also has grown very strong growth in recent years, and is forecasted by people other than us, Goldman Sachs, Citigroup, many others, to be a very fast growing category. So this is a chart. If you want to check online, it's called Up in the Air by Goldman Sachs. They publish a music industry report every year. It's an interactive website as well. It's really well done and chock full of insightful information. For purposes today, music has grown and is projected to grow almost double in less than 10 years from where it is today on a global basis. That is driven primarily by streaming, which is what we finance at BeatBread and what sliceNote investors have an opportunity to invest in. So we're not the only people onto this train. In fact, there are people who've come before us. So esteemed investment houses, BlackRock, Shamrock Music Shamrock Capital invests a lot in entertainment and other things. PIMCO isn't even on this page, also invests in music. It is a very attractive asset class for the reasons I just said. It's fast growing, it's uncorrelated with the broader economic cycle. It pays recurring revenue, and it's data rich. In the music industry itself, beyond the growth of the industry, there's also a change in the mix of what it looks like underneath the hood. So for many, many decades, music was a winner-take-all market from an artist perspective. There are a few thousand artists globally who could make a career as a musician from the recorded music, right? Streaming has reduced the barriers to entry and reduced the cost of distributing your music. So because of streaming, it's no longer 5,000 artists who can earn more than $50,000 a year on their recorded music. That number is now $25,000 or $30,000 and is forecasted to be 50 or 100,000 artists by the end of the decade because of these lower barriers to entry. And it is this vibrant middle class of artists, which is a very sizable and the fastest growing section of the market, that is the bulk of our focus at BeatBread and also at sliceNote. So whereas the institutions on the prior page we talked about are investing in gigantic superstars, Justin Bieber, Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, you probably read about recently. What sliceNote does, as John and Izaic will show you in a second, is gives investors an opportunity to invest in this, the large number and the fast growing group of middle class artists. So our background is strong at sliceNote. So we are a relatively new company, but BeatBread has been making music investments now for more than 3 years. And we have made investments in, at this point, it's more than 800 artists, soon to be 1,000. We're doing more than a deal a day. And we have developed a track record where, as John, my co-founder, who built all the data science behind this, has been very strong. We've been able to predict streaming revenues very accurately for these hundreds of artists that we have invested in. And what sliceNote does, as Izaic will show you, is give you access to the tools to give you the data, show you predictions to make your own investment decisions. So sliceNote is powered by the exact same technology and data science that we use to build BeatBread into a fast-growing and exciting funding platform for musicians. And with that, I'm going to introduce my co-founder, John. John runs our data science and technology teams, which is the core of what we do. He can explain a bit more about the hundreds of thousands of artists and millions of songs, but John has built this with his team. We also were advised by someone who's not able to join today, a guy named Vibs, who is the former head of data science at Sequoia Capital, for those of you who follow the venture capital world. So we got a bit of advice from Vibs, but really the credit belongs to John and his team. And John has built data models for insurance, for algorithmic energy trading, and many other areas, and has done quite a job in the music industry with us here at BeatBread. So with that, John, I give the floor to you.
Thanks, Peter. Thanks for the overview of the state of investing in music. Music is a new area for me, although I have been exposed to a variety, as Peter mentioned, a variety of different platforms and industries and other data-rich environments that we can make predictions and capitalize on having a better way of predicting the outcomes. So in music specifically, we have data sources on 200,000 artists and close to 20 million tracks. Now, this is a large historical data pool that we were able to purchase, and it gives us information as to trends in those artists. So how do songs degrade over time when you have a new release? How does that boost up quickly and be exciting, and then what are the things that cause it to decay quickly or cause it to have lasting value? And then we've used some really exciting techniques to extend those predictions out beyond 5 years, 10 years, even 20 years. We have kind of terminal value models that allow us to really look into the long-term viability of different tracks. Peter mentioned this, but our predictions on our close to 1,000 artists have been very, very accurate. And it says here that the portfolio cash flows are within 4% of predictions. It's actually under 1% now with the last few months of predictions. And so, predicting an individual song that is new is a challenge and requires a lot of novel techniques to address. But as we're able to aggregate over an artist's portfolio or over a portfolio of artists over a series of months, we're able to really fine tune those predictions and get accuracy numbers that are within 1% of that. That allows us to tune our return rates. So not only do we have predictions of the cash flows, we have a pricing algorithm that allows us to say, well, I want to return this amount of IRR on this asset. What would be the advance amount for that? And that technology we flipped on its head for sliceNote. So that technology has been battle tested in the market, over 1,000 artists in BeatBread. But we turned that technology on its head and said, if I were to advance this much money and these are my predictions, what would my IRR be? So instead of saying, what is my IRR that I want? What is the advance? We're saying, if I were to bid this much and these are my cash flow predictions, what would my IRRs be? That's one thing that we did for sliceNote. But another thing that we actually have a patent pending on is that we have predictions not only in the mean case or the median case, we have a distribution of predictions. So you could say, for an artist like this that has these characteristics, what are the potential outcomes? So we not only can say, I want to earn this rate of return on average. You could say, if this is the downside case, what would my rate of return be? And then say, in the upside case, what would my return be? And this allows the investor to have contextual information that is difficult for the machine to understand. But things like, who are my collaborators? What types of marketing is going into this potential collaboration? Those are things that the investor could say, I've listened to the music. I know who these collaborators are. They have a track record that might be interesting to the machine, but overlooked in some cases, and allow the human to say, I believe they're going to hit the 70th percentile or the 80th percentile. But I also want to make sure that I don't have a downside less than the 20th percentile. And so you can tune, we have this technology that allows you to say, if I were to bid this, what is my upside? What is my downside? To get yourself comfortable with the different range of outcomes. And then as you invest in more and more artists, you get that portfolio effect, and you really can fine tune your expected outcome to the numbers that you tune to, as we've been able to do at BeatBread. So we have really the ability to guard against losses where you don't return your money. We have right now we're trending to less than 6% of our portfolio is tracking to a loss, and that's not a total loss. That just means it's not going to return its full money. But 80% of our cohorts are funding above target now. Now, with this comes the ability to customize your own risk profile returns. And that's one thing. Our financial institutional investors for BeatBread have a risk profile that we have to be able to make safe bets that hit right down the middle of the fairway. But other people might say, I'm willing to have a different risk profile. I'm willing to go after those big artists and bid at a premium, knowing that my downside has certain limits that I can tell about through the tool, and yet allow yourself to customize your risk reward profile that might be more appropriate for you, so you can go after those bigger artists and more exciting artists, but still make sure that your downside is something that is acceptable to you given the tools that we have available to us. So that's a long-winded way of saying that we have AI that works better together. So that last thing I want to say is, I've been in AI and building data science products for close to 2 decades now. And the thing that really works well is this idea of using the expertise of the human with the number crunching capabilities of the machine. AI is all over the news right now, but really being able to use the qualities of the human to tease out the capability of the tool is where I find the best value from AI comes from. And that's what we're doing. We're providing AI tools to help the human really fine tune what they want to get out of this and feel comfortable and confident in their advances. And it gives predictions on what advances are appropriate for this artist, this type of artist, and so forth. So for that, I'll turn it back over to Peter, who will finish this off here. But thank you for your time today.
No, and thanks, John. Yeah, so there's a lot of data science behind all this. John is very thoughtful about it. We have the tools to let investors, hopefully in a very simple way, see different outcomes in the downside and the upside and make their own decisions backed by data. And Izaic, the general manager of sliceNote, is going to now show you guys the platform in action and show you what you can do to make your own decisions about an individual investment. Go ahead, Izaic.
Cool. Thanks, Peter. Appreciate that. So before we dive into showing you the actual platform, some of the things it does, just what we're doing and what sliceNote actually facilitates for investors is first choice. So we want to give you a variety of options because we know investors have different investment objectives. So we have multi-artist funds and individual artists and some different structures within those individual artists, which we'll talk on more later. Then we also allow you to invest in small increments, whether that's $1,000 or upwards of $1 million or anywhere in between. We provide you direct access to the cash flows. So we're not taking your money, give it to the artist, and then say, okay, artist, pay us back like a mortgage. We actually take control of that asset. So the monies flow directly to us and then to you, not to the artist. So we have control of the songs, of the tracks. So there's security on that for you. An additional level of security we have is that we are not just out here doing this on our own. We have all of our contracts have been standardized with music industry experts. We have security counsel that we work with. We also work with a third-party broker dealer. And we allow investors to open a sliceNote wallet, which is a regulated SIPC insured brokerage account. So we are avoiding anything that touches on crypto or blockchain, given certain things that are going on in that area. So what we're trying to do is really offer a new asset in a familiar way. And so that's our goal at sliceNote. And so the first thing I mentioned was those multi-artist funds. So you can think of these as akin to a mutual fund in other markets. So these funds are pool investment vehicles where you're investing in a group of artists of a specific grouping, whether that be genre, ethnicity, region of the world, type of music, old or new, all the different things. So this allows investors to invest in a specific grouping of artists or grouping of music, but diversify the risk among multiple artists. And it's also a lot easier. You don't need to bid. You don't need to look at all the data. We're going to run each artist to the algorithm, and that's the price at which the fund invests. On the individual artist front, we allow you to pick each artist. So you think of this as, picking your own stocks on a Robinhood or something. And so one thing, I'm going to quickly launch a little poll, just as we want to ask our audience, now what's more important to you? The name of the artist, the recognition, or like the financial characteristics? Well, on these individual investments, we are fractionalizing these things. So you don't need to purchase the entirety of an artist revenue. It could be 1%, it could be 80%. You get to pick, and each slice is equal to 1% of the revenues for the artist. And so looking at the results, vast majority of you say that no, financial characteristics are more important, or at least as important as the name recognition, which we believe as well. That's why we talk about the data versus the name. Name's important, but again, we're looking at artists who you might not know their name, I might not know their name, but there's a large group of individuals out there who are listening to their music and thus producing revenues from their streams. So on these individual artists, we have a variety of slice types. So what these slice types are different structures to meet different objectives for investors. And so we have blue, green, and gold. So the blue and greens have an investment multiple. I want to touch on the blues first. So the investment multiple can be viewed as the amount that you need to recoup or you need to make back before you stop collecting royalties, as long as the music is generating royalties. So an example investment of $1,000 with a multiple of 1.5, your investment multiple is $1,500. You'll collect the 1% of royalties until you've received that $1,500, regardless of if it takes 20 years or 6 months. So in this example, right, you made that money in 2 years, you're done. However, difference is on a green slice, there's upside. So there's also a listed term. So on the same investment of $1,000 with a 1.5 multiple, you would have a multiple of 1.5. But if you make that 1.5 in 2 years and you still have 1 year left on the term, you'll collect that money until the term ends. So with blue and greens, the floor is the same, but the upside is greater on greens than on blues. Lastly, we have golds, and golds are effectively perpetuity interest or extended interest. So depending on the contract, which will be in the PPM for each offering, it may be you're buying a share revenue for perpetuity, or it may be an extended term, 20 years or above. And that's depending on the artist, but again, that's all disclosed to you as the investor for you to look at. But with that, there is no multiple. It's just you're going to collect your percentage of royalties until that contract ends, whether that be forever or for an extended period of time. So with that, I want to hop into the actual platform and show you all that data John was talking about, both the subjective and objective that we share with you. So this is a demo artist, my demo environment of our platform. And so at the top, we have an artist profile. So this is where you're going to see a lot of that subjective information. Now, who are they? Where do they come from? How long have they been making music? And then also, are they doing anything big in the future? Are they going on tour? Are they releasing a new album? Are they collabing with somebody on TikTok? Are they working with any hot producers? And we also list any collabs they're having. So if they are releasing an album with a big artist, that can be seen here. So you can view all this information and make your own opinions on what does that mean for me? How do I view that? Then we also get into showing you a lot of objective data. And so I'm going to kind of quickly go through this, but we show you information about the included songs. So the track age, the countries that the music is being listened to in, and the platforms. So all these things, all this data actually goes into the algorithm, which John talked about. So you can also view this yourself and make your own decisions. We show you all the details about the tracks, some streaming history, the percent of ownership which is being sold. You can actually listen to the tracks as well if you like. We tell you how old the tracks are. If the artist would like, we include music videos that they have up publicly on YouTube or other video platforms. Give you a breakdown of the revenue history for the tracks included. So if the artist isn't selling all their tracks, this will only show the tracks in the offering. Then we show you some static projected revenues. So you can view some revenues over the course of the term in all different cases, which I'll touch on more in a second. And then also some fan and social metrics. So whether it be Spotify, Twitter, YouTube, or TikTok, or Instagram, whatever they have available, we pull that in for you to view. And again, make your own decisions on how do I think their Instagram engagement is helpful. But with that, that's a lot of information. I mean, it's a lot for me to try to get to in a couple minutes. And we know that's a lot for investors. So what we try to do, like as John mentioned, is we synthesize all this with our algorithm, and we try to, at the highest level, surface that. So if you were to go on our website and go to place a bid, which is going to invest, this is going to take a second to load for us. This technology John talked about is our bid guidance tool. So what this does is allow you to look at your investment and then look at what the projected revenues are, or my projected income could be, and see that spread of revenues across multiple scenarios. So John mentioned a single point, which being the median or mean, which is this meets expectation. So this is if the artist performs on average relative to other artists of their size or similar data profile. Below expectations is a 25th percentile, exceeds expectations is the 75th percentile, and a breakout case, the 95th percentile, or they really break out and become a much bigger artist than they currently are today. And so you can see, the IRRs, your loss or gain, your time to break even, and your time to receive that multiple for blue and green slices. And also how sliceNote works is, as we're trying to build a two-sided market where investors are getting good returns, but also artists are being funded appropriately, we have a closed auction system. So we have a base price, which is a base bid, is effectively the minimum we are willing to, or the artist is willing to entertain as a bid for their royalty share. You can adjust that. And if I adjust this to say, let's say $1,200 per slice, these numbers change in real time to show you the different potential financial characteristics of your investment. So same thing, if I change number of slices, I mean, this is just a multiple of 10, so your IRR doesn't change, but your total loss gain is going to change. Your time to receive that multiple is going to change, things like that. So then ultimately, if you decide you want to invest, you could submit a bid and go through the process. And what that process is that once we've done all the work of getting the data, creating the contracts, you submitted your bid, we then notify you if your bid is submitted or if it's rejected. If it's submitted, we send you an agreement to sign a contract. This investment contract is your participation in a Series LLC, which is the underlying asset that you're actually purchasing units of. Then we allocate those shares to each investor, we fund the artist, and then you'll receive quarterly payments in accordance with the share of revenue that which you purchased. And that's really the flow of what we're offering. And throw it back to Anna to start our Q&A.
Thank you, Izaic. For the last portion of our webinar, our panel is going to be answering your questions. So if you have lingering questions, feel free to navigate to the Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen and submit those. But without further ado, I'm excited to open these up to Peter, John, and Izaic to answer. Our first question is funding from IRAs via custodian like Alto IRA on the roadmap?
Peter, do you want to answer that question or want me to answer that question?
I'm interested in your answer, Izaic.
Yeah, so it definitely is in the long run. We currently have no hard plans at the moment or to do so, but it's definitely something we've talked about internally and want to do in the future, given the capabilities we can, given that we can. But given that it's such a new asset class, it may be difficult to do in the short term, but it's definitely on the roadmap as music is more widely accepted as a valuable asset, which we're again trying to do in our company.
The more investors we have on the platform, the faster that will happen. So we're not quite ready yet, but certainly would love to. We'd like to grow a bit more before we do that.
Cool.
Thank you. Our next question is, how does sliceNote handle the distribution of royalty payments to investors? Are there any fees or commissions involved? Izaic, would you like to answer this question?
Yeah, sure. So we distribute royalties to both for the funds and for the individual artists quarterly. So if you invest, you'll receive a payment with a corresponding report within 60 days at the end of the quarter. And in terms of commissions and stuff, it varies per offering. So I'll have you check the disclosure docs for each offering. But generally speaking, there is no management fee. It's just an upfront fee that we charge, but there is an ongoing yearly management fee.
And Izaic, keep me honest here. There are some fees that are disclosed in the documents, but the impact of those fees are already baked into the numbers on the bid guidance tool.
Correct. So any individual artist that
what you see on the bid guidance tool is what you get after any fees that we charge.
That is correct. That's correct. Yep.
Great. Our next question is, what kind of support and guidance does sliceNote offer to artists beyond the investment process? Do you provide any additional resources to help artists succeed in their careers? Peter, would you like to answer this?
Sure. Yeah, so sliceNote and Beat Bread are founded on the idea of artist empowerment and choice. And so what that means is we don't offer any services, not because services aren't important, but because we want to give artists choice of those services. So we don't do that ourselves. Now, there will be some deals on the sliceNote platform where the artist will say in that qualitative bio that Izaic showed you and the qualitative information that John talked about, hey, I'm working with these 3 awesome producers and this marketing company for my next release. That would be disclosed to you in the profile of the artist. We wouldn't be providing that service ourselves, but if you want to make an investment in an artist who's featuring their collaborators and their service providers, you should. And we have made investments in the past in artists where investors were explicitly investing not just in the artist, but the team behind them. There'll be a profile coming out online recently. Venice Music is a artist development company here in Los Angeles that we'll be writing about. But the investors were very impressed with the team behind the artist, not just the artists themselves, and that was part of their investment thesis and impacted their bid.
Great. Our next question is, what is the tax treatment of the payments, K1 or 1099?
Yeah, I can answer that. Yeah, so they're K1s. K1s is what we give you.
Great. Our next question is it possible to create side deals with artists to own a piece of the IP that you're investing in so that you can get involved in helping the artist grow?
I assume this is coming from a music person. The short answer is yes. It would probably not happen through the platform. It would be if, my example would say Venice, right? And I'm not them specifically, but if someone is going to invest not just money, but time in an artist's career and is going to get a piece of their IP as a result, that happens all the time. And by the way, is totally appropriate. The way we would handle that would be, there would be this pre-existing deal, and then additional monies would come from the share of the IP, which isn't in your deal, that then other investors would bid on. Now, if you're an experienced music person, you probably want the artist to say that successful producer X or successful manager Y owns 10% of this deal and is getting behind it, because frankly, that may make it more attractive, right? Depending upon your track record. But we would not facilitate those side deals through the platform, if that makes sense.
Our next question is, do you see many artists using BeatBread to pay out their major label contracts, or is it mostly independent artists?
Most of what we do is funding independent artists and independent labels, even at BeatBread, similarly with sliceNote. There are a handful of deals where we have helped artists get out of major label deals. And we will always look at those. If an artist has an unrecouped balance with a label and is able to buy out and sort of regain their independence, and that's what they want to do, we love that story. And we're happy to do that. But of those 800 plus to 1,000 deals, depending upon when you're watching this, that we've done to date, it's a handful. It's a growing percentage, but it's a handful.
Thank you, Peter. Our next question is, what if an artist and investor form a good relationship and the investor gets a positive ROI from an initial deal? What is the incentive for the investor and artist to remain on the sliceNote platform?
Sure. Well, there's a bunch of bidders, and from the artist perspective, more bidders is always probably a good thing. If you are an investor and you have a good relationship and the artist values that relationship beyond just your money, you can continue that relationship and maybe source some of the capital elsewhere, right? That's what I would say. But we are never going to, if a deal is for 5 years on 10 tracks and 10 new songs, and that's the deal on sliceNote, we're not going to say, oh, we also have an option on, your next 5 albums, the way a record company would. It's deal by deal. So.
And on that note too, just for the incentive for the investor to stay on the platform, we are doing that work of bringing multiple investment opportunities to you versus you have to go hunt out artist by artist. Even if you can make good relationships, we're trying to bring those to you for the ease of you not doing a legwork of hunting them down on your own, but bringing them to you, making it simple, letting you invest in a simple way.
Yeah. And I would add one more thing to that. Like one of the reasons why the BeatBread algorithm has been so successful is because we get a multiple, at bats where we get to aggregate the value of individual artists. And if you just make one relationship with one artist, and you're going to tie your horse to that pony, and you're going to be firmly with just that one outcome, which could be have a wide variance. But if you want to come to BeatBread and say, I like this artist or I like that artist, and create this environment where you're creating your own profile based upon your assessment of the data and your assessment of the context, to be able to create a portfolio for yourself, then you get access to multiple artists and you can spread your variance down dramatically. Or like we said, Izaic talked about these multi-artist funds that allow us to do that aggregation of that portfolio. And there you don't have to put in the work. You just get the benefit of an interesting uncorrelated asset, and we're the ones creating that portfolio for you.
The other thing I would add is some of the bidders on sliceNote are music companies, and music companies who offer financing to artists long before we ever existed. And so when we come to them, some people, their first reaction is, you guys are my competitor. I don't want to talk to you. But far more often than not, they soon realize they have a fixed amount of investment that they can make in artists. And even companies with hundreds of millions of dollars at their disposal to invest in artists end up partnering with us, because what that means is they can develop a relationship with an artist, and rather than putting $100,000 or $200,000 into the deal, they can put in 30 or 40%, and other investors can provide the rest of the money. And then they can build relationships with more artists, right? And do what they do best, which is services, marketing, promotion, production, right? So we really think that a village is better than a one-to-one relationship in a lot of these things. So I guess that's the other thing I would say about, the individual who has a relationship with an artist.
Great. Our next question is what is the structure if you bring an artist that is not on sliceNote and get them funded? Is that possible?
Definitely.
Let me play that back. What is the structure if you what?
You bring an artist. So if you're sourcing the artist.
So was someone asking, is there commission? Basically. You can message us separately about that. We do pay some commissions. We're certainly open to talk about that. Candidly, some of the commissions I've heard that the majors pay, we don't pay that high. If I can be totally blunt with you, I hope those of you appreciate just me being transparent. We do pay commissions in certain situations, and if you want to message us at sliceNote or BeatBread, happy to talk about that.
Our next question is each sliceNote treated as separate K1s, or if a person owns multiple sliceNotes, are they rolled up into one K1?
Yeah, great question. So if you own multiple slices in one artist, so say you bought 10 slices of Radiant 101, that'd be one K1 for the artist. But if you have multiple artists, you get a separate K1 for each artist. So each series which you're participating in effectively would get its own K1.
Our next question is what is the average deal size and advance?
My honest answer is I don't know what our average on sliceNote is. At BeatBread, which is on average smaller deals than sliceNote. But some people come to BeatBread and they end up on sliceNote, right? Sometimes they go to some of our partners that I mentioned, they end up on sliceNote. At BeatBread, our average deal is now north of $50,000 and south of $100,000. I think, actually, I'm quite certain that the average on sliceNote is in the hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we have done multi-million-dollar deals on sliceNote for the artist. But I'm going to have to confess that I don't know the number, and we're going to have to get back to whoever asked that question.
Now, on the true average, I couldn't give you the average off my head. In the minimum, though, the minimum total advance or funding the artist is receiving is 50,000 for on sliceNote. So again, while the average at Beatbird is 50, the minimum for sliceNote is 50. So that, again, that's just the scale of artists sliceNote is generally working with, is that larger artist versus the smaller artist, the relatively larger artist versus the smaller artist.
But then one slice would be 1% of that 50,000.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
So an investor can get in for $1,000, right?
All right, our next question is, where do you stand compared to your competitors such as Indify and STEM Disintermedia? What makes your data more powerful and what makes your advances more equitable?
I don't know where Indify is in its journey right now. I can only speak to what I knew it to be about a year ago. I believe that Indify was connecting people with music industry people. Often those and those collaborators were often the investors. I don't know how much fractionalization they do, where you can break it up into little pieces. I think, STEM, I'm not aware that they have an investor platform. Maybe they're developing one. We have partnered with STEM on a distribution basis in the past. I think that's a great company. And I think that I don't actually know all the different deals that STEM does. So I can't say that we're more or less equitable. I know that we have very high artist satisfaction, and we have very transparent deals where the artists can set their own terms and actually see the implications of going to 1 to 2 to 3 to 5 years, including futures or not. But I'm not going to play the game of we're better or worse than 2 competitors. We think that it's a very big world. We think we have a great offer, but we also think that we're not the only game in town, and that's fine.
Thank you.
I would add, though, that some of our product offerings are more robust. And frankly, that's driven a lot by our ability to predict riskier assets in a way that allows those predictions to make sense. Like, for example, right now, if you go to sliceNote, you will not be able to bid on a new work. And like I said earlier in the presentation, predicting an individual song of new work is probably the most difficult thing to do that we try to do. But when we cross-collateralize that new work with existing catalog that has much lower error rates in terms of its predictions for the long term, you're able to take a riskier bet, but base yourself in a stable thing. And I think we've developed some technology that allows us to offer more flexibility for the artist in a way that allows the investor to still make good bets. And so I would say there's a fair amount of product innovation that does distinguish us from some of our other competitors that the artists like, and frankly the investors have been really pleased with our underwriting as well. So I'll add that there.
Thank you, John. Our next question is, why do you put someone on sliceNote versus funding through Beatbread?
2 reasons. One is we will not put an artist for less than $50,000 if we don't think there's a chance that the artist can clear more than $50,000 on sliceNote. We will not put it on the platform. The other reason is not up to us, it's up to the artist. So if an artist comes to Beatbread or comes to one of our white label partners, we run advanced programs for now more than 30 independent distributors and labels. The artist at the end of the process sees an algorithmic number based on the deal structure they choose, and they can take that number right away, or they can choose to go to the network. It is entirely up to the artist. So as long as they meet certain size thresholds, and they are on a distributor and we work with hundreds at this point that we're comfortable working with. There are a few that we're not. As long as they're on a distributor that we feel comfortable telling an investor that you should feel comfortable, then it's up to the artist.
This next question is for John. Have you been incorporating any estimates on the impact of AI in artist market share to your model?
Yeah, I mean, AI has turned a corner in the last few months with the outcome of the large language models and generative AI. You know, I've been in deep AI space, whether it's deep learning or convolutional networks or generative AI or adversarial networks, transformers and encoders for you know, at least 10 years now, or even longer than that. And it's really interesting. I mean, the creative side of AI to be able to generate content is really quite interesting. Now there's a lot of things that need to play out before that market share becomes relevant. Like, for example, I mean, just look at another entertainment space, movies and acting. The Actors Screen Guild strike right now, I believe, is mostly centered on the use of AI in movies and television and entertainment, and the actors are trying to protect themselves around being replaced by this interesting new technology. Similarly in music, there's going to be, I mean, there was that thing where they released on Spotify the generative AI music that was trained on other people's music, and there's going to be regulation around that, and you know, whether it slows down or speeds up, I don't know, but in terms of it actually impacting the artists that we see right now in terms of market share, it's just such a small portion that it's not impacting our models right now. But we do have a very close eye on that. We're actually you know, in talks with bringing on a generative AI expert to do things like, for example, one of the early things that I talked with Peter about when he first brought me in was, could the wave function or the waveform of the music itself be predictive of the degradation or lasting power of that song? And so there's a lot of things that we have in the hopper to try and understand that. But my answer to that right now is it's a little too early for the creative AI delivering content to the market that is big enough to impact our models.
Yeah. The other thing I would say is, as the non-data scientist member of John and my partnership, is, you know, the question was, do we forecast it in market share? You know, the short answer is not right now. The longer answer is, we're market share directly, or it has like, it's almost third order effect. It would impact our models. We're looking at individual artists and their relationship with their fans effectively, and how does that endure and generate revenue over time. So to the extent that AI starts to eat up effectively the subscription revenue of the major streaming services, and artists overall get a smaller share, that would potentially impact future projections. I'm personally of a view, and this is not in our models, guys, that the dollars available per artist are only going to go up, because you're slowly seeing the cracks of subscription rates going higher. You're seeing bot generated music and fraud getting cracked down. You know, we have tools to detect fraud. I can tell you that the incidence of fraud on the platforms is going down, not up, in the last 2 years. I'm very confident of that fact. So I think the overall trends for individual artists who've already made it, or making it, I should say, made it not in a superstar sense, but artists who have a fan base of a couple thousand people, it doesn't really impact what we do. The other thing I would say is, I do think what's going to get hurt by the AI first, for the next couple of years, is all the ambient noise, all of the stuff that some people call not real music, fans, sounds of babbling brooks, baby music. You won't see that stuff on the sliceNote platform, because I think that stuff, it's going to be fine until it's not, and it's going to go to zero. So anyway, I don't know if that's what the person was asking, but those are our collective thoughts on how AI impacts us in the foreseeable future.
I'll add one more point on that just real quick, because I think it may be one way they're trying to ask the question. This concept of, if the assumption is AI can make better music than me getting on my keyboard and screaming, right? Lots of people do that to Spotify, but the assumption is AI can make relatively decent music. As the amount of decent music increases, am I going to be more drawn to go away from the artists I listen to regularly because just the volume of music's out there, right? The more stuff there is, the higher the likelihood I'm going to listen to other stuff is. And that is, I think, maybe TBD. I don't necessarily know, but that, again, we'll figure that out. We'll continue to work on that.
Certainly watching it. I don't want to come off as dismissive. But I don't think that AI is going to wholesale change music consumption in the next few years. I also think, however, it's a groundbreaking technology that probably be sort of like the synthesizer that revolutionized music making for what we would call real artists, right? It will be a tool that mid-level and superstars use to advance their art.
Great. Our next question is, are you typically investing in entire back catalogs or sometimes just specific songs?
We'll do either. Most of the deals we do are multiple songs. There are some people out there who are picking out individual songs and making offers on them. That is not our game. Yeah, for better or for worse, we actually, despite the fact we're on a webinar right now, we're actually don't do a lot of marketing as a company. We have a very small, including BeatBread, very small digital footprint. We try and focus on the product and have people discover it, as opposed to go and reach out to artists and say, we want to buy that song from you. That's not what we do.
Great. Our next question is, if an artist decides to go for a record deal with a major in the middle of a term, is there a penalty for the artist? Has it happened before?
It has happened before, and we think it's fantastic. So just like we love the story of helping an artist who wants to get out of a label deal, we also love the story of an artist who maybe has a label deal on the table, doesn't like it, needs some money from us now, but then a year later, guess what? Their career's taken off and now they're ready to go to a major label. That's great. Once again, it's a big world. We know we're not going to be the only solution in all cases. So our artist deals on the BeatBread side have an algorithmic formula in them where the artists can buy out. It's based on how much is left to pay. It's based on how you're doing. And it is what it is. We're not going to negotiate on that. Once you're on sliceNote, buyout becomes more difficult if you're an artist. So because investors need to have an assumption that they bought something, and if it's going really well, they need to be compensated for that. So buyouts are much less likely once an artist elects to go to sliceNote than if they were on the BeatBread platform alone.
Yeah, and on the investor side, if there is a potential buyout in the artist contract, it's in the disclosures for the investors. So yeah, review that per offering, but that's there for you so you can understand if there is a buyout, what is my return going to be? What am I getting my multiple? Am I getting more than my multiple? What does that look like? So check per.
You would never not get your multiple.
Correct. Yes, you'd at least get, yes, they're all written to have at least. That's correct.
Our next question is, given the target of our middle market, do you think this insulates us from AI-related threats?
No. I mean, I think we don't know what the AI-related threats are. But I don't think that I think it applies across the board, middle class, high, low. But once again, I think I may have a different view of whoever asking that question about the level of that threat in the near and medium term.
And I would even say that the AI disruption, will also happen at the long tail, because you'll have these artists. It's just like your kid writing a term paper for school. It's going to help if you prompt the AI right. It's going to help you when your English is not the best. And so if your music is not the best, the AI will help you get to that level. And so I think it's definitely something that we're watching, and we have investment in understanding so that we can be nimble when we need to move. But it's going to be, you know, I don't think that there's too many safe places. You know, I just a funny quote just came to me. One of the last industries to be impacted by AI, I heard, was massage, right? I mean, maybe you could have robots and so forth, but like it's going to be a new world that we're facing, and you just need to be smart. But I think one of the best quotes on AI is not going to come for your job. People who understand AI are going to come from your job. So as long as you are aware and leading the effort to understand and utilize AI, you're going to be in a good position. At least that's my view.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question. Do you believe that the possible price bump for Spotify's subscribers will help to speed up the recoupment of the deals currently available in sliceNote and BeatBread?
Yes, but it's not in any number you'll see in any of our predictions. So in other words, we don't have price bumps in our model, in any of our models, because it's hard to predict, and I still think it's going to take a second. But personally, and I'm not speaking for John, I'm speaking, you know, as myself, I think that it's hard for me to believe that a Spotify subscription, which is not increased in more than a decade, for something, and you know, Apple, whatever, I just use Spotify as shorthand, is not going to go up in a world where you know, a cup of coffee costs twice what it did when Spotify launched. You know, pick your comparison. So I don't think it's happening in 6 months. I'm not even sure it's happening in a year, but I think a bump is coming, and I think that will flow through to artists. But it is not in our models, and it's not in any of our predictions if you're looking at how we value assets.
Thank you, Peter. Wonderful. Thank you again, Peter, John, and Izaic, for answering our questions. If your question was unanswered, you will be receiving an email with the recording of this entire webinar, as well as a list of our answered questions. And all of the questions that went unanswered will be answered in that email as well. So that concludes our webinar. We appreciate all of your questions and participation. If you have any further questions, please feel free to email us at investments@slicenote.com, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate it.